you.
This conference will now be recorded.
Sorry. Hello, and thanks for joining us today. You've connected into our third session of our Resilient Exit series, Legacy and Leverage, Creating Lasting Value Before You Exit. Um, just a few instructions before we get started. To help everyone hear the speakers clearly, please keep your microphone muted during the session. If you run into any tech issues, feel free to message our director, Ashvina Patel, directly. She's on this as well. If you have any questions at any point, feel free to drop it in the chat. If we ask questions, or if we, ask you, if you have any questions, you can come off mute as well. But if someone's speaking, feel free just to drop that in the chat. That'd be great. If we don't get to any of the questions during the session, we'll follow up with answers afterward. And if you'd prefer to ask something anonymously, you can also just send that to Ashvina directly as well. She will ask without saying your name. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm glad to be here with you all for our third session of this series. My name is Connor Taub. I'm a small business advisor for the Aurora South Metro Small Business Development Center, serving Arapahoe and Douglas counties. At the SBDC, we assist entrepreneurs at every stage of their business. That includes important moments like exit planning and business transitions. I work with small business owners every day. Many of them are growing their business and wondering, what will be my legacy when I'm ready to move on? And what can I do now to increase my business's value before I exit? And I just put this up on the screen quickly. I will remove it so that we can have kind of more, be a little bit more intimate with our, conversations. But on the screen shared, you can see we offer one-on-one business advising. It's free, it's confidential. We ask that you schedule an appointment to connect with us. We offer business trainings and events in person, hybrid, virtually. We'll even record and put on some classes as well on demand. And then we act as a resource guide. So we build relationships with local, state, federal resources, various different organizations to help give our clients what they need and get them the best expertise that they need. So, even if you're not planning to exit soon, we're hoping that this conversation helps you to start planning ahead, because planning gives you more options, more peace of mind, and more leverage. So we will drop a link in the chat later if you do want to book a free advising session. So just keep an eye out for that. You can always reach out to our office as well later on if you lose that link. But today we are lucky to have two amazing speakers. We have Stephanie Shearer and Don Taylor. They are experts on this topic, and they have helped many people go through different kinds of exits. They know what it takes to build value and exit on your own terms. They will each share for about 25 minutes, and then we'll have time at the end for some questions and comments as well. Feel free to type your questions again into the chat or just listen. It's a relaxed conversation. That's what this is all about. I'm going to give just quick introductions. First up, we will have Stephanie Shearer. Stephanie is a seasoned CEO, author, small business advisor for the Aurora South Metro SBDC. Stephanie launched her latest venture, greeting card company Blue Spark Card Co. in 2023. Stephanie has owned numerous businesses, having started, purchased, and sold a variety of businesses for a variety of reasons. Stephanie's experience allows her to provide rare insight into the world of business transitions. Luckily for us, she is passionate about helping entrepreneurs discover their unique talents and forge their way to success, both professionally and personally. Following that, we'll have Don Taylor. Don is a licensed business broker and deal advisor at Foresight Business Brokers in Fort Collins. He specializes in selling Colorado businesses with or without real estate, in revenue ranging from $1 million to $20 million. Don has 30 years of experience in business ownership and over a decade helping clients buy and sell businesses. He excels at building relationships and bringing people together. Don has extensive expertise in establishing market value and conducting business transaction involving real estate. He has handled transactions across over 40 industries with varying business and ownership models, and I'm very excited to learn from both of them today. Um, Before we jump in, I do want to invite you just take 30 seconds to think about this and enter it into the chat. What do you want your business legacy to be? Kind of a big question, but an example of that would be, do you want, the values of your business to remain the same? For an example, if, you're a pub, do you want it to be that local watering hole? What do you want your business to look like after you're gone? And do you care? There's no right or wrong answer here as well. I love I love that. Thank you, Ashvina, having built a safe community for women. Thank you, Lori. Be the go-to place for small business help. These are great. Be a sustained boutique book publisher that provides a platform for authors with inspirational messages. That's lovely. Alrighty, I think that was 30 seconds-ish. I'm comfortable with the silence. Um, let's see here. Thank you for sharing. This helps us all reflect on what really matters beyond just the numbers or the deals. Kind of puts the emotion and kind of can capture some of the nuances with exiting your business. So first up, we will kick it off with Stephanie Shearer's segment. So I'm going to ask Stephanie a few questions. So, Stephanie, you've personally experienced and have worked with many business owners through different types of exits, and I would really love to hear your input. What were some of the most valuable lessons you've learned about exiting early in your entrepreneurial career?
Yes. Well, hi, everybody. My name is Stephanie. As Connor said, hey, Connor, thanks for that introduction. Can you send that to me? It was so good.
Be glad to.
I want a written transcript of that just for, memory's sake. And I am going to answer the question, but quickly, I just want to address the question in the chat box and just say that um, I think that everybody who owns a business puts blood, sweat, and tears into their business. It's like having a baby, right? And so we do care about, just like if you have a child, you care about, their future and where they're going, even if it's without you. And so I think that these answers are wonderful. And I would be very surprised if somebody said, I don't care what happens to my business after I'm gone. There's probably some people out there that feel that, but I feel like probably the majority of people really care about what their legacy is going to be and what their business is, that their business is going to move on without them. And so, to answer the question, to circle back, what are some of the most valuable things that you can do is to go in with a mindset that your business will carry on without you one day. So, I know that's really a weird thing, especially if you're a newer business, to be thinking about that. Because I know in my first four businesses, I never thought about the end date ever. I think that, I was excited about doing this business and my mission and, all of that stuff. And so I never really thought about, what would happen if I wasn't in the business. But the reality is that you are going to leave your business one day. Somehow, some way, you lose your lease or you lose a business partner or you drop dead on the sales floor. I don't know, like not to be the Grim Reaper, but at some point in time, you will leave your business. And so, the really good thing to do, I mean, I guess the answer to the question is start thinking today about opening your business to sell it, right? Because ultimately that would be a really great way to leave, is to sell your business rather than having it close or losing a lease or whatever. And there are good scenarios too. I know a business owner who had to leave his business or his portion of the business because he got a deal on Netflix and now he's a Netflix movie star. So, it's not all gloom and doom. And so when we talk about exiting, I think sometimes there has a sort of a sad feeling about it. But I don't think it needs to be. And I think it can be something exciting to think about how you want to leave this business and when you might want to leave this business. But the more important piece is how you want to leave the business. What does that look like for you? That
Thank you,
answer your
Stephanie.
question?
Yeah, that was a great answer. And to kind of, you know, to follow that, there is a big personal element and a lot of feelings that go into a business. On the flip side of the coin, though, um, profit and money. So kind of that leads me to my next question. What are some actions that you took to ensure that when you were ready to exit, you were able to maximize profit?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a bunch of things that you can do. And again, I think you should start planning for that exit right now. Even if you don't think you're ready, even if you don't know when that would be, it could be 10 years, it could be next year, it could be, maybe you have no idea. Maybe you're not even wanting to exit your business right now. But what you can do is you can do some really important steps. And the first one you need to do is review your lease because it's difficult to sell a business if you don't have a lease that you can sell a business, a good lease. So you need to see if you can sell your business and how that works. Is your lease transferable? Is it not transferable? You need to know those details. I think that you need to think about and not just like exit doesn't necessarily mean you're closing or selling. It could be that you're stepping back from it. Maybe you're going to co-op with your employees and something like that. So it could be a situation like that. And one of the things that you need to do is make sure that your business can run without you. So it needs to be what they call turnkey. So you need to be able to have all the systems in place so that if you were to, I don't know, jet off and go live in lavender field in Italy for 6 months, that your business would still run and still make money and still function without you. And so I think that's a really important thing to look at, not just for exit, actually, but for business growth. If you can get your business to that point, it is definitely sellable, but also it's just healthy business, right? Like you want your business, just like a kid, you want your business to be able to function without you holding the reins. Records. You need to make sure that you've got all of your records and that you've got them all like in a legible form and a readable form, and that somebody else that they're not like, don't keep records like me. I'm a horrible record keeper. I'm going to tell you, everything is handwritten. I'm old school. I don't do anything digital. So, you want your records to be updated and just I don't know, it's like a lasagna. Just keep layers of this stuff, like build on that. Build your main financial record keeping system and then just add to it every year. Um, I think you need to start digging out, especially if you're starting to consider the idea of exiting. Maybe it's going to be in a year, maybe it's going to be in 5. You're not really sure. That's okay. We don't need an end date. But what we do need is to start digging out those corners. And if you have any kind of brick and mortar or office or some sort of physical presence to your space, you know what I'm talking about. There are things in corners and under desks. You know how you just kind of keep this thing over here? You got to get that out. You've got to get all that stuff, that physical stuff out of the corners, clean out the closets, get all of those things out. In my case, my last business that I sold was a retail store. And so I needed to get all that stuff out, clear out the clutter, and I put it all on the sales shelf, man. I was like turning that into some dollars, right? Not big dollars, but just get rid of it, clear out the clutter. And that means digitally too. If you don't have a brick and mortar, if you don't have an office space, have you taken a look at your folders lately? The kinds of things that somebody else would come into and be like, what is this file? You need to start kind of cleaning everything up a little bit. And then, the last thing would be to start streamlining processes. And that would be like, and for my last business, it was the buying process. I needed to make sure that I had a clear and easy buying process for somebody who, in my buyer's case, had never run a retail store before and was walking into one that, did almost $2 million a year. So that's a big leap from never running a retail to jumping into one doing, close to 2 million. So that person needed to be able to walk in and have those processes streamlined so that he could pick up right where I was leaving off. And those are the kinds of things, and it takes some time, it takes some work. And those are the kinds of things I think you need to do to get your business ready to exit.
Thank you, Stephanie. There is a question in the chat. What are a couple of things we should be looking for as we sign a lease that may impact exiting the lease agreement down the line?
You know what I'm going to do, if it's okay, Ashvina? I'm going to let that question hang for a minute because I'll bet that Dawn has a more in-depth answer than me. I can tell you that I made sure that my lease was transferable. And every time I sign a lease, I make sure that it's transferable. But I'll bet that Dawn, who has 30 years experience of handling these kinds of things, has some other things to check off. So if that's okay, we're going to go ahead and hang that in the chat and put a pin in it till Dawn has a chance. Is that okay? Is that okay,
Yep,
Dawn? Sweet.
Don agrees.
Yes, absolutely. No problem.
So talking about your latest business, can you share the example of your business that was in Stanley Marketplace, how you had exit in mind from the very beginning, and what that looked like for you?
Yeah, so it was my ninth business, I believe. Maybe it was my eighth. And I finally listened to my own advice and opened that business with the mindset to sell it. And I was there for 8 years. So it wasn't like I opened it and I was going to turn around. That's not the deal. The deal is that I went into it knowing that at some point in time I would exit, and I wanted to maximize that strategy and that exit plan. So also, there were some things going on with that last business. Like my mom got sick and she did all of my accounting and all my bookkeeping. And one of the things that we discovered was that when she was really sick in the hospital, she couldn't remember the passwords to anything. And so I couldn't pay bills. I couldn't pay my phone bill. I couldn't pay my utilities. I couldn't log into my bank accounts. I couldn't do any of that stuff. So that's one of the things that we did when we opened this final business or this last retail store was make sure that we have a system for our passwords so that if something were to happen to me, that all the passwords aren't stored in my head because we need somebody else to be able to access that, right? And I don't want to be Dr. Doom and say I'm going to die, but what if I just, I was in the hospital or I really did just decide I'm running off to that lavender field in Italy. Like I'm out. I need a break. I'm going. um, Somebody else needs to have those keys to those passwords, and you need to figure out a streamlined system for that and how that works, because it's also not something you're just going to share with every who in Whoville, right? So you've got to have some keys to that. I also updated my operations manual. It's something a lot of small businesses don't have. And I'm telling you, you guys, like meet with your SBDC advisor and let us help you put together an ops manual. It's so important. And I think I have a feeling Dawn's going to agree with this a little bit later, is it adds value to your business. It legitimizes your business and it shows that it's like having a chapter. If you were reading a book and it didn't have, maybe you're going to read it front to back, but you didn't have the table of contents, it's like it doesn't feel like a real book. And if you need to flip to chapter 3, you don't know where it starts because you don't have your ops manual. You don't have your table of contents. So super important to have an operations manual. So what did I do? In my last business, the first thing I did was revisit my operations manual and make sure that everything was, updated and that it still made sense and that there weren't like weird references to Britney Spears. Yes, there were in my ops manual. So, I needed to change that a little bit and make sure it was a little bit more universal. Still fun. I mean, I had a fun business. I wanted to have a fun ops manual, but just a little bit less my voice and a little bit more my brand's voice, right? Um, I also had to evaluate my team and make sure that my team was the right people were in the right places and fill in the gaps of, a position that maybe I did or that my husband worked with me as well or that my husband did and make sure that we had everybody there and working to so that it was like not just the business was turnkey, but that a new owner could come in with the existing staff and just the very next day have the same business. It should look the same. If you do a good job of selling your business and preparing your business, the day after the sale with the new owner, the customers should notice nothing. They should walk in and not even realize. So think about the things that you would have to do to make sure that those processes are streamed. What did I have to do? I did a binder. It's a huge binder because remember, I'm not digital. So, luckily, my buyer was actually impressed. And sometimes, sometimes the old school physical stuff actually impresses people. So I did bring my binder with me today just to show you. I know that we're on Zoom, so that it's going to look kind of weird. But this is my binder. So I had this for my buyer. And each one of these sections is different things. And I'm just going to show you really quickly because I know it's weird on digital. But so this is what a planogram is. Actually had a question about what does a planogram, oh, can I get it to focus? What does a planogram look like? So in my case, this planogram is a diagram of the store. Oh, there, kind of. Okay, it's a diagram of the store and it shows each department and it shows what brands are where. And so I streamlined that like hardcore. Like if you go into the store right now that I sold, the same brands, the same lines, the same products. They change all the time, but it'll be the same lines are in the same place because my buyer is following that planogram because it's just helps him. Now, can he change them? Of course, it's his business. He can do whatever he wants, but he's still following that. And I had visual guides in there. I have another section. Look, I can see. Okay. I had another section of all my financials. So this is 8 years of financials, right? I have a whole section of monthly reports for 8 years. So I did month and then I did a year report and I'd staple them together and then I'd start like a lasagna. Then I'd start layering my months again and then I'd staple them together. And so I have 8 years of financials. I had 8 years of branding. So this is my branding stuff. Look, my stickers, my business cards, my postcards, any kind of publications I was featured in, 8 years of branding. And then I had my, I just call them visual aids. These are the things that we would run in magazines. Oh, look, there's my husband and I in my store. These are the kinds of things that we would run, and I had those as well. So I ended up with this packaged binder. By the way, it was nice just to have as a business too. I could go back really quickly and see, oh, I had my staffing calendars, so my schedules for 8 years by month, right? I had monthly calendars. And so I had all of that stuff in one big binder that I first gave to my broker, who maybe Don can discuss this, but my broker was like, this is like gold. This is like gold bars in a binder. And so I didn't know. I was just doing my thing. but I was happy to hear about that. And then, yes, as I met with the buyer and did 4 weeks of consulting after the purchase, I saw how valuable that binder was to him. And so, I thought of it more as like a scrapbook, just like a scrapbook of my business. Um, but I think that it ended up being, again, kind of a guide and a tool to help my buyer have a truly turnkey business.
That was an amazing answer. Thank you, Stephanie. And I love how I can see how happy this is making Don. I can tell how much he's loving it. Um, but yeah, processes, procedures, business planning, disaster preparedness planning, you know, things that SBDC can also help support you with. Um, but wow, that was amazing. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Yeah, of
I really
course.
appreciate that.
Great job.
And now, Don, we can hear from you. You have also supported many owners during big transitions. I know you have seen many different paths. Kind of first question I want to lead with is, how can a business owner maximize the value of their business before putting it on the market?
Yeah. First of all, Stephanie would be a dream client. So you're going to see me and hear me echo a lot of the things that she shared. She's been there and done that, and she's done it really well. So great job on that, Stephanie. And I love to hear that the group at SBDC can help with operational manuals and just documenting some things that are going to help people as they go through this process of figuring out where they're at today, where they want to be, and how to ultimately sell it. So, um, okay, so a couple things to do to maximize value before we go to market, right? Um, Back to what Stephanie said earlier, clean it up. And similar, I guess, to selling a home and having people come through and do tours of your house. You can consider it like that. But there's three main areas of that. You want to physically clean it up. Stephanie mentioned the corners. But you need to get rid of things that ultimately aren't going to be part of your sale. And that can be done as you get closer, but the sooner you take that mindset on and just start getting things out of there that really aren't going to be part of the future, the better. Decluttering is going to be good for you, as painful as it will be for some small business owners. It's good for your staff, your customers too, depending on the environment that you're operating in as people are coming in and out of there. So it's a win across the board. But physically cleaning it up, especially things that are broken and just kind of set by those should go. The reality of it is clean and organized businesses sell really well, and there's a lot of psychology, not manipulation, but there's just so much psychology going on. Imagine getting to the point of selling your business. Those folks likely don't know you, and they're coming into your environment, and they're gonna develop an opinion constantly, and part of that is what they're seeing in front of them. If the business is a mess, they're going to start to wonder, are their books a mess? I mean, do they handle everything like this? So, if same thing with a vehicle, I mean, if we clean it up and make it look nice, we just start removing some of the fears and anxieties that sellers are going to have. So, clean it up physically, very, very important. Clean it up financially, right? And this is an area where, as a business broker, I spend a lot of time before we ever go to market working with my clients on it. Most small business owners do their books. That's just what I find, and they'll learn how to do it, and they're doing their best job, even though their skill set maybe in another area where their business is using them. Maybe they're trying to save money. Maybe they just do it because they like it. But the truth of it is, your buyer's going to come along and they're going to want to know how this works, right? Are you the only one that's done the books? Was it just you or your spouse? And that may be the case. But there's an opportunity before you go to market, sooner than later, to have someone else put eyes on it, right? And one of the things I find is not so much people manipulating their books, but maybe it's miscategorized. And by the time I come along and we're looking to make sure the books are in order, because I'm going to be doing ad backs and things to help get it prepared for market valuations. We want consistency. Your buyers are going to ask the question again, like I said, has someone else looked at that? We want to be able to say yes, someone else has taken a look at it, even if it's just a bookkeeper that's gone through it and given you their opinion, give you some coaching on it along the way. That's important to do. Um, and then operationally, right? So you want to, let's say you have a vehicle that has trucks or something like that. If they're leaking and they're not working great and the tires are bald, you're going to have to make some investments along the way in your business before you sell it. And again, this is going to go back to buyer walks. They're going to want to come meet you. They're going to want to come see your operation. Even if you work from home, if you've got trucks, like I mentioned, they should be clean, they should be serviced. You should have service records. You shouldn't have bald tires, either for you, because that's not safe, or for your future buyer to look at that. And they're going to, again, they're going to start thinking quality, organization. These folks have their stuff together. So cleaning it up is big on the front end. Um, I would say also mirroring what Stephanie said, identify, develop, and even project key employees. And where this is going is, look, the reality of it is, the more you as a business owner are doing the thing that makes money, the harder it is going to be to sell your business. And the further, conversely, the further you get away from that, okay, meaning we have other key employees that can take parts of your job and do that effectively, the closer you get to flipping the keys to somebody, the higher amount you're going to sell your business for, the more it's going to be worth. It will ultimately save a lot of stress and anxiety for you too, even though we're talking about making changes for some of you. But the reality of it is, when you can flip the keys to somebody, a deep-rooted owner-operator company where the owner is in the middle of everything and they're doing everything, no matter how much it makes, right? Versus one that has a general manager or key employees that can take that, your multiple is going to go up. It's going to be in more demand. You're going to sell it for a higher amount. Um, so that's an important piece of it. And here's one that you may not have seen coming. Take a vacation. What do you mean? Like, if you haven't taken a vacation, like a lot of small business owners haven't, you need to do it. Um, doesn't mean it's going to happen tomorrow, because you may not have done it. And so you're going to say, well, okay. But listen, just the process of preparing for that and identifying what you've got to do to have, things done around the shop or the business or whatever it is to keep your business going while you and go on vacation somewhere and hopefully enjoy it. That's going to go a long way. You need to do it. And guess what? Your buyer needs to know that you've done it too, because they're going to ask, like, have you taken a vacation? Nope, haven't taken a vacation in years. Oof, how am I going to do that? Right. So I hope that makes sense, but take a vacation.
That was a great answer. Thank you. I really like your comparison about it being like selling a house. But I have vacation in Italy stuck in my head now.
There you go.
That's all I can think
We
about
all
at
should.
the moment. But I like when you're talking about kind of what the buyer wants and what they're kind of looking for. What are some of the common questions a buyer would ask when considering a business that's on the market?
Yeah, good one. Um, well, how much is it? How much does it make? They all start there. It's people like me. It's our job to help them. Not necessarily start there. We'll get there, but let's talk about some other things. Your buyers are going to want to know your why. It's critical. You've got to have a story, and you've got to believe it, because they've got to believe it. And as a business broker, I start here. I want to know why do you want to sell your company, okay? And why do you want to sell it right now? And it's critical because it tells me, right, your timing and your motivation. It also tells them that. You need to know that. You need to be sold on that. If you're a business owner and you are wanting to sell, look, some people run into a wall somewhere and they have to sell and it's on fire. That's not optimal. What we're talking about here is leaving a legacy and trying to plan to do it right. But your timing and motivation are really, really, really critical, and it's going to serve you well throughout this whole process. It's going to become a component of your mind that helps you plan. But your buyers are going to want to know that. Why are you selling, and why right now? I'll tell you, when I come across clients that call me and they don't know the answer to that, it's okay. But I will tell them it's not, they're not ready. If you're not convinced that now is the time and you're committed and you're ready to do what it takes to make that happen, we should just wait. You should wait and go through some of these other steps that we're talking about here today to get yourself ready to do that, because it's an undertaking to go through that process. The second thing they're going to want to know is about you, right? Who are you? What do you do here? What do you touch and feel? And how are you impacting this business? So let's say I'm your buyer. I want to know that. Who are you? Are you a good person? Yes, of course. And what is your role in this business? And am I going to be able to replace you, or do you have key employees that can take this part of what you do or that part? Um, what is that going to take for me to ultimately replace you in your business so we maintain business continuity? I want to buy something that's going to keep going and ultimately grow and get better. I don't want it to start nosediving, depending on what your plan is. Stephanie was very well prepared. Sounds like she did most of it in a month. That's fantastic. I mean, I'm being serious. That is like a perfect scenario. I would love clients like her all day. But it's different for everybody. So who are you? What is your role? And how do they go about trying to replace you? And then look, the third piece of that question is very, very important. And this is hard for a lot of business owners. What's working well and what is not working well? Okay. We have a lot of pride as small business owners. We work very hard, and so sometimes it can be difficult for people to come forth with things that maybe we're not doing great. But the truth of it is, buyers don't want to buy a business that they feel is fully baked. Like this thing is, everything's done, it's as perfect as it can be. And that might sound a little silly, but I'll help you understand why. They need room for growth. Number one, if they feel like your business is perfect and everything's humming, where are they going to go from there, right? It's probably only down. So they don't want that. The second part of that is they're going to want to make their mark. If I'm the buyer, how am I going to fit in here? I mean, I've got to have some sort of role here, um, to impact this and put my print on this business to help make it mine and where we're going here in the future. Again, Stephanie did a great job of like, here's how we did it. She gave that buyer a blueprint of where they've been and what they've done. But it sounds like they're by their own choice, they're still using some of that. I'm sure they put their own flavor on there too, and they're kind of doing some of their own things. So, what's working well, what's not? Be humble. Check your ego at the door. We're all business owners or have been, so it can be tough. Sometimes it's easier said than done, but it's really critical to the selling process.
Great, thorough answer. Thank you, Don. I think that's really valuable. Um, you know, as a as a potential seller, what are or even earlier in the process, so just a business owner in the planning stage, what are one or two small steps someone could take this month even to increase the attractiveness of their business?
Yeah. Um, well, let's start here. Start thinking about your transition plan. Um, it's going to require a shift in mindset if you're not already doing this. You've got to get your head wrapped around a transition in the future and what you want that to look like. And from that type of an approach, you're going to be able to start putting pieces in place that will enable you to do what you want that to look like, right? Selfishly, as a business, I'm a listing agent. I deal with buyers all day, every day, but my clients are the sellers. Well, look, these things can be stressful. They can be anxiety provoking. It's just part of the deal. But it doesn't have to be terrible, right? The better you're planning and the more you're thinking through this and trying to figure out, like, what do I want this transition plan to look like? I'll tell you, from a buyer side, they're going to have like, if you don't tell them what you want it to look like, they're going to tell you what they want it to look like. I want you to be here for 6 months for free. Then I want you to do all this stuff that's going to help me, because I'm afraid and I don't know what I don't know. And but you have an operational manual and you have a transition plan and you can lay this out to them, like, look, these are the things that I do with my role. These are the things that my key employees do in their roles. This is why it's going to be okay. I think we can get through this in a month, because she was very well prepared, and here are some steps that I think that we can take to transition my role. All your buyers are going to be different. Some's going to be amazing at marketing. Some just want to be operators, sales, financial. They're all across the board. But I think that's why it's important we start with you. Let's figure out what you want this to look like, how you want this to go down, and then work from there, right? And so take it from your mind and start putting it on paper eventually, but work on your transition plan. And then the second biggest piece of that is back to what Stephanie said and what this small business development center can help with, which is your operational manual. And that can be scary for people that have never done that. Don, I'm not a writer. You don't have to be. You can literally take a piece of paper and I'm a bullet guy. I like bullet points and I use Word and Excel like I'm going to win something by continuing to do it. So just bullet points, simple, this, that, and that. Start with 2 or 3 things, and then you'll start to fill in some details around them. But Stephanie, I think the whole group is on board with the operational manual. It's critical. It doesn't need to read like a book. You don't have to be a scholar. Don't worry about that. The more that you can start identifying these different roles and the different things that have to go on and the different humans in your business that take care of that, the better off you're going to be showing someone I'm prepared, right? So let's circle back. So they inquired about your business. You already know what your transition plan looks like. You've already cleaned it up a little bit. You took a vacation, God bless you. So that needed to happen. And then, we got things in order. Like we've got an operational manager. We have a plan on what we want this to look like. And that's ultimately how, friends, I'm big as a broker. I'm big on the match. Okay. Someone said earlier, like there are people out there that will say, and they've said it to me, I don't care what happens to this business after I sell. I actually won't take that. I mean, I just won't take that deal. I'll move past and because that's it's a recipe for disaster. I definitely need sellers who care, who want a legacy, who care about that transition to the next folks that are going to take this over and move forward. Everybody wins. That's how it should be. The seller, the buyer, the customers, right? Let's not forget them. And your customers are your employees too. Those are your internal customers. So let's try to find a way where everybody wins. When businesses are bought and sold correctly, it's far more about the characteristics than it is the economics. I mean, they already know whatever the business is does 3 million because we told them that, and we're generating whatever it is, $500,000, 300,000 in discretionary earnings, owner benefit. They know that. Now let's get into the nuts and bolts. Let's get into the characteristics of this business, the ownership model, my employee type, my customer type, all these other things. Now we're finding a fit. And that's how you bring a buyer in deep to your scenario, that they're going to want it for far more than just what it generates in revenue and income. And guess what? They're probably going to pay more for it. I find that often. Most of the businesses I sell over asking price. Not there. There's no pixie dust here. When you find the right fit and there's value and quality, people will pay for that. And so if you can do that with your business, people are going to line up to buy it. That's what you want.
That's great. Preparing. I like what you said about identifying the characteristics. Setting intention and setting specific expectations. I'm sure if you're selling a business, and you've sold it, you might not want the new owner giving you a call once, a year from when you sold it, asking you for stuff. Um, and I really like, you talking about, business owners that care, that can translate to higher value. And
Absolutely.
and I think that really speaks to kind of what we're trying to talk about with this exit planning series. So thank you for that. I do want to circle back quickly to just a earlier question. Actually, Stephanie, do you have a question first?
Just a super quick, I just want to follow up with that about the match idea that Don was talking about and sort of emphasize that, because I think I agree with that so much. If it's a win-win-win, It's a win for your landlord. It's a win for you. It's a win for your buyer. That is such a beautiful thing. And as proof to the pudding, I transitioned out 4 weeks after we sold, but my husband is actually still working there.
Oh wow.
So we sold the business, and now he has, and one day a week and then more at Christmas time. But it's like he loved that part of the business. So he actually, we sold the business and then he got a job there. And so it's great for it's great for the new owners who have become really dear friends. And it's great for my husband because he still gets to see all of our customers. 20 years we've been working with these customers, right? Like we care about them. I I was happy to go home and sit around with my cats. So I'm not gonna lie, but it can be like Don was saying, if you can find the right match, then everybody's happy. I love that my store is still there, even though it's not mine anymore. And I love that. And by the way, that owner just opened a second retail store. So this is wins and fireworks all over the place. And it can be your story too, for sure. You just have to plan. You have to start planning now. It took me 8 years to get to that place, not a month, 8 years to have my business ready to sell, right? So I just want to talk about that. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you, Stephanie. I did want to circle back to the earlier question from Ishvina. You know, what are, just to kind of reiterate the question, what are a couple of things we should be looking for as we sign a lease that may impact exiting the lease agreement down the line?
Yeah. Do you want me to take that, Stephanie? So, look, transferability is probably the biggest piece of it. And what does that mean if you've not really gone through that? Well, it means your ability to transfer that lease that you're on the hook for whatever amount of time and money to somebody else. And there's a couple key pieces to that. I'm actually going through this on one of my larger deals right now. But look, landlords ultimately want to make sure someone's going to pay the bill. I mean, they might, some of them we get along with and hang out with. That happens every now and then. But mostly they just want you to pay rent and not be a problem and make sure that they get their money. So typically what that means is, let's say I've signed the lease, okay, and as part of that, your landlords are looking at your net worth and liquidity. How strong of a candidate are you to ultimately see this thing through, whatever your business is, and your ability. Do you have good credit? But net worth and liquidity are important. So let's say I've got whatever it is. Maybe I've got total net worth of $1 million, and my liquidity going into that, they can see that too. They can see I've got some reserves. I'm going to pay rent for a while. If I try to sell my business to someone that is not as financially strong as I am, it's going to pose a risk to that landlord, right? And they're going to hesitate typically and push back or just disappear and not return your calls. But if the more we can get from the landlord on the front end, okay, and I'm coming now from a business owner perspective myself, is the more we can get them to provide us in writing, especially even an email, or if not in the lease itself, like these are the qualifications that it's going to take for me to allow you to transfer this lease from Don to somebody else. So the more you can get that in writing, the better. Even if it's an email, fine. Typically, landlords will want to avoid that at all costs, so they are not on the hook for anything. But if you can find somebody that's in a stronger financial position than you've got a great shot at the landlord transferring that lease. The second part of it is a lot of business owners will sign leases on their own. It doesn't mean they're a dummy, but it may not mean that they're an attorney that's used to dealing with that. And I deal with attorneys all day, every day. They used to freak me out. Now I I deal with it all the time, so it's no big deal. But attorneys don't have to be crazy expensive either. If you can get folks that know what they're doing and can get in there and get it taken care of and get out of there, it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. I deal with that with closing attorneys that close these transactions, buy and sell side attorneys. I have buyers that come along, right? I represent sellers. The buyers they're ready to sign a contract. I'm like, no, no, no. You need an attorney, and I'll give you one that can get you through this relatively quickly and without breaking the bank. But it just goes back to have somebody that specializes in that take a look at it for you. Because if you intend to sell this business down the road, Stephanie's right, you're going to have to transfer the lease if you've got one, and you need to make sure you can get that done. Otherwise, friends, you can remain on the hook with the new person who took your business, bought the business from you. You don't want that, right? I mean, I don't know. I'm probably over answering that question, Connor, but that would be my feedback there.
It's great feedback too. Never, over answering is, I appreciate it. Um, there is another question in the chat. However, I do want to kind of do my thank yous because we have a few minutes left, and then we'll circle back to that. So huge thank you. So you don't have to go. We're gonna do, so we'll have a few more minutes for questions, comments that you can chat, raise your hand, unmute yourself. But I do want to say, huge thank you to Stephanie and Don for all the insight and experience that have arrived with them. It's clear that planning is not just about leaving. It's about building a legacy that reflects your values, vision, and the hard work that you've put into your business. So to everyone here today, we hope this gave you something to think about no matter where you are in your business journey. Exit planning, as you've heard, doesn't need to be scary or rushed. It's simply about being intentional and starting early so that you have more choices later on. And if you didn't get a chance to ask your questions, feel free to send it to us by email, schedule a one-on-one session with us. SBDC and our resources are here to support you, whether you're getting started, growing, planning your exit. We'll drop a link in the chat so you can schedule a free advising session. Once again, thank you for being here and investing your time in the future. You don't have to go through this stuff alone. We're here to walk with you every step of the way. And so I'll just leave the last few minutes for questions. I do see Lori put in the chat, is it a good idea to start a new lease upon transfer of ownership?
Is it? It could be, right? So as you evaluate, so I'm a buyer that just bought Stephanie's business. Is that what we're saying? Yes, I think that's what I heard. Okay, yeah, maybe. I mean, it depends on the terms of her lease and the willingness of the landlord, right? If I'm a buyer and I feel like I'm maybe in a better position, or maybe I can extend it longer so that create more favorable terms with length of time with the landlord. Sure, maybe want to sell myself to them a little bit different than the previous owner has. Absolutely, it could be. Yeah, I would say it could be. It depends on the scenario.
I will add that in my particular situation, I had really desirable rates in my lease, and they were already predetermined. So to kind of go back to Ashvina's question as well, um, what kinds of things should you be looking at as a business right now? Just having that exit strategy in the back of your head for your lease. I would say transferability and also terms, if you can build out those terms. So I had 15 years of terms built into my lease. That was my mom. I can't take credit for that. She was a brilliant lady. So anyway, so I was not able to have a new lease, but I think this is where my very smart mentor, Lori, is going with this, which is if you don't start a new lease, then you need to have like an agreement of separation drafted by an attorney, because if that business owner defaults, the landlord can come back to me. And so you want to make sure that you are not just separate, like I sold the business, I'm out of here. But at the end of the day, that lease was originally drafted with you and your company. So you need to go to an attorney, pay the $500 or whatever it's going to be, and draft a legal separation agreement so that you are no longer, and maybe even shut down your LLC. So it's like, see ya, done. I don't own that LLC. Maybe you're selling the LLC. That's another option you could do, is actually sell the LLC to separate yourself out. So yes, I think there's a lot of different ways, but like Don said, one of the people that should be on your list of people to call besides your SBDC advisor and your broker, of course, is an attorney. Have an attorney be there through this process with you. It's so important. You want to make sure that all your I's are dotted and all your T's are crossed. Does that answer your question, Lori?
I'm so glad we recorded this. I will be revisiting this for all this great info in here. So again, huge thank you to our presenters. Huge thank you to our attendees. Hope you took something away with you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.